Hello everybody, this is AHOLE here, coming to you on 2/15/24. First off, I want to say happy birthday to my brother if he watches this. He don't throw darts, but he may watch this because he supports me and what I'm passionate about. So happy birthday, brother. Secondly, what this video is going to be about is revisiting locking your wrist and figure out why it's important. And it's going to be about setting your dart and why that's important and what to focus on as you approach the line and what to focus on as you're ready to throw. So first off, I have these same darts I used last time in one of my previous videos, and I'm going to get into locking your wrist. The reason why locking your wrist is important: you lock your wrist and bring it up to your eye level. So if you lock your wrist at your eye level with your dart in your hand, you want your forearm perpendicular to the ground. What perpendicular means, if your arm extended down to the floor, you would have a 90-degree angle on both sides of your arm to the ground. So I'm not saying you got to set your dart exactly at eye level, but pretty close to it is the way you want to go. So newer throwers, my advice would be to, when your forearm's 90 degrees and your wrist is in the locked position, you want to have your dart in your hand parallel to the ground. What parallel means is the dart should be level to the ground and the point should be pointing directly at the board. So at whatever height you set your dart at, when your forearm's perpendicular to the ground, your dart should be parallel to the ground pointing at the board. So that's why locking your wrist is important, because you want to have that wrist locked. Now, for example, I was showing you my wrist lock and me making the dart parallel to the ground while my forearm is perpendicular to the ground. That's with my wrist lock. I'll show you this way so you can see the dart in my hand. My forearm perpendicular to the ground, dart parallel to the ground pointing at the board. So that's my grip, which is, my grip. Other people will have different grips. Other people will have different wrist locks. That's why you really can't tell somebody how to hold a dart. Again, everybody has different wrist locks. So let's just say my wrist only went this far. Okay, so if my forearm's perpendicular to the ground and I only have this much wrist lock, my grip would have to be more open. Something like this. Because my wrist don't have this much motion, it would only have this much motion. Then I'd have to adjust my grip to level it with the board while my forearm is perpendicular to the ground. So that's why I explained figuring out your wrist lock and finding a comfortable grip for you with your wrist locked. Then another thing you want to do is, once you get that comfortable grip, say you hold the dart in the front. Okay, I'm gonna just show you a basic front grip that I used to use. So say my wrist locks this much. So then I'm gonna have the dart in my front hand. So with my forearms perpendicular to the ground, I gotta level that dart. But say I have this much wrist lock, then I could bring the dart down. So there's different things you could try, like I said, with your grip, trying different fingers, less fingers, up and down the barrel. But at the end of the day, what you want to do when your wrist is locked and your forearm is in a 90 position, 90 degrees to the ground, perpendicular, you want that dart to be level, whether it be above your eye a little bit, below your eye, beside your eye. Like, just imagine, I'm left-handed, I'm right-eye dominant. Let's just say that I was left-eye dominant. If that was the case, for me, what I would do, I would have the dart beside my eye, level with the ground, with my forearm perpendicular. That way, if it's beside my eye, my hand, the dart's not restricting the vision to the board. When you walk to the line, as you walk to the line, you do not want to look at your hand. You want that to be muscle memory. You want it to feel the same. You don't want to look at your dart ever in your hand. When you walk to the lines, hypothetically, say I'm playing 501. As I'm walking to the line with my 3 darts in my offhand, I'm staring at my objective, which in 501 full bull is the bullseye. Without taking your eye off of the bullseye, you should be able to set your dart, back draw your dart, and fire your dart without looking at your dart or without taking your eye off your objective, which is the bullseye. After your first dart, you should then, while still looking at the bullseye, grip your second dart, set your second dart, bring your dart back and fire, and so on until all 3 of your darts are in the board. Focusing on your objective and only your objective is really huge in the game of darts. No matter what you're throwing at, whether it be the double 3 or the double 20 or the bullseye, you should set your dart at the same point every time. Some people that are, strong hand dominant eye, they don't want the dart in their vision because they're focusing on their objective. Which is why I say set the dart, outside of your dominant eye, above your dominant eye, or below it. Now, I'm not saying that your set point has to be, it 100% has to be right at your dominant eye with your arm perpendicular. I'm saying use the perpendicular to the ground thing to get your grip figured out. For instance, I'll show you mine. So I don't set my hand perpendicular with my off eye, but I know when my wrist is locked in the lock position, my forearm is 90 degrees, and my dart's level to the board, I know if I'm right below my dominant eye, where I like to be, if I go like this, back out, boom, the dart's level with my eye. So I use my grip and my wrist lock as a reference point. So a little bit of my stroke, I have a slight double, like a ghost pump So what I do is I come up, I go like this, and then I go back out, and then I come back down to my backdraw point, which is the side of my mouth. There's so many different set points for people and release points. It's hard to tell anybody how to do or what to do. But what I'm trying to say is, when your arm is in the 90 position and the dart's level with the board, that's a good starting point for you. Some people throw right out of the 90 point. So what I'm trying to say by that is, you ever see the people at the bar that have their arm out like 3/4? Because they know when they get to here, the dart's level with their eye. So some people have their arm out like this, the dart pointing at the ground. Then when they get to here, they hurry up and fire. So the first point of emphasis is, you gotta have your arm in the 90 position with the ground, your dart parallel to the ground. So out of here, some people like to have their arm straight out like this, okay? Because then if they have their arm straight out like that, look, they bring it up, boom. The dart's parallel to the ground, their arm's in the 90 and their eyes here. So you might think people are aiming, using their flight for aim when they have their arm like this. What they're actually doing is creating their grip and their wrist lock. And then out of that, they bring the dart up to their backdraw point and fire. So I, go right below my, non-dominant eye, so it don't get in the way of my focus on my objective. So that's sort of my set point, like right below my non-dominant eye. So I do like a little hesitation, double pump, and then go down to my backdraw point. The whole time I'm throwing, I'm staring at what I'm trying to hit. I do not look at my dart. That's very bad. I used to use like a crease in my wrist and, try to line my hand up with whatever I'm throwing at. That's a no-no. Like I said, you got to create muscle memory. If you're throwing at the double 3, double 20, no matter what it is, you want your elbow height the same spot every time. And that's another reason why setting your dart at the same point every time is important, height-wise. Like some people, they'll set their dart way up here while their arm's in the 90 position, like up near my forehead. But when they backdraw like down to their eye and then fire. As long as when your arm's in the 90 position, your forearms and the darts parallel to the ground. You want this 90. When this is 90, you want this parallel to the ground. There's people at no point they stop anywhere near here. Like I said, some people do this. Some people do this. Some people, start way back here, sort of like me. But at the end of the day, the best grips that are out there and best wrist locks that are out there, when their arm is in the 90 position, I call this the 90 because 90-degree angle to the ground. The dart's always parallel to the ground. Because whether you know it or not, just about right here of a stroke is when the dart is released out of your hand. I know people that, try to look above their hand at what they're trying to throw. So like, say I'm throwing bull, I see the bullseye above my hand and I throw. But then I'm throwing the double 20, I see the bullseye or the double 20 above my hand, and I throw double 3, but bring my arm down to the double 3 above my hand, and I throw all those examples I just mentioned are no-no, because your elbow height changes. Throwing it to double 20, your elbow would be up here, bullseye here, double 20 down here. You don't want that. On your follow through is when your hand goes to different places. Like if I'm throwing double 2, double 3, my arm's going to go down. If I'm throwing double 20, my arm's going to go up. With my height, the bullseye is pretty much right at eye level. So when I throw bullseye, my arm goes like straight forward. That's when you go to your objective on your follow through. But your set point in your back draw, you want it the same height no matter what you're throwing at. And do not look at your hand. Do not look at the dart and aim your dart. You don't want to do that. You can't create muscle memory if your elbow's at a different height for every different objective on the board. So what you do is find something that's comfortable for you. Get your wrist lock, put your arm in a 90 position, grip your dart based on your wrist lock, and level it with your arm in a 90 position. And then out of there, if you create that memory of your wrist lock with your grip, that you're comfortable of holding the dart the same time every time. If you want to start out farther, start out farther. If you want to start down here, start down here. As long as you know when your hands, when your forearm's 90 degrees to the ground and the dart's in your hand and the dart's level, it don't matter where you start at. It don't matter how far you bring it back. Like I said, some people, will set their dart here at the 90 degree position and their back draw will bring them right to their eye and then they fire. Me personally, I need more back draw to get my full follow through. That's why I swing down near the side of my mouth and fire. I know people that line their dart up beside their eye and then they come down alongside their face and fire. The main thing is on your back draw, after you set your dart, however you feel comfortable setting your dart, do not drop your elbow. You want all forearm. Example, I'll show you. Right here's where I set my dart. When I bring it down, I fire out of it. My elbow height never changes. On your follow through, you want your elbow to come up, to get your full extension on your follow through. But if the people that, like some people, they'll drop their elbow down like this. You see how my elbow came down? That's bad. If you drop your elbow, it don't help create any muscle memory and you'll be very inaccurate. You want your throw to be all forearm and wrist action. You lock your wrist, grip your dart. Make sure this is 90 to the ground. Make sure your dart's level. On your back draw, your elbow should not drop at all. It's got to stay there. That's what helps create muscle memory. I've seen a guy at a pretty big dart event. I think it was in Ohio. Me and my local friends were laughing quite hysterically. Not laughing at him, but it was kind of unique. And I talked to him afterwards, and, it kind of made sense to me. He was a pretty decent, above average dart shot. What he would do is he would come up like near the center of his face and have his dart kind of level with his eyes. And as he came down his back draw, he ran out of room. And he wasn't comfortable with the room that was given to him for his back draw. So what he did was he opened his mouth and stuck his flight in his mouth to get a little bit extra back draw. And then that's where he fired out of. No, I'm not doing it on the video. But there's all kinds of different forms, techniques that people use as reference points. But the end game is you want to create that consistency, that muscle memory, holding the same dart every time, locking your wrist every time, setting the dart height that you're comfortable with every single time. But I guarantee you that almost every elite dart player in the world, if they came out of their back draw and put their arm in a 90 position, 90 degrees to the ground, with their dart in their hand, their dart would be parallel to the ground at that point. Now, I'm not saying it would be the same height this way, up and down, but I know the dart would be like this, pointing at the board while their forearm is perpendicular to the ground. A lot of elite dart players never go there. As I was saying in my previous video, it's all in your rhythm and your stroke. Some people don't stop. They just go right to their back draw and fire. That's what they're comfortable doing. That's their rhythm. But I'm speaking on this for the newer players that are trying to get more consistent. Make sure your forearm's 90. Don't worry about this. Different people have different amount of dip and bend in their elbow based on their lean and whatnot. MVG, one of the best players in the world, he has a lot of lean. He leans a real lot. And he brings the dart to his mouth, like right below his nose. And he fires out of there. His elbow, with his amount of lean, his elbow looks like this. And his hand is way down here. But his dart's level with the board. There's a lot of players that just go straight to their back draw. Before I took my last break from darts because I was developing a hitch, I didn't set the dart at all. I just came straight to the side of my mouth. And I started leaning too much. We'll get to leaning and your stance and the way your foot placement and where you line up to the board in future videos. And I would want to say that, a lot of advanced players in our area and across the world, they don't really like to talk about their stroke and stuff like that, because you start talking about your stroke, and then next thing you know, you're at the line thinking about your stroke. Am I doing it right? Should I try to change something? So like a lot of players that's been playing 5, 10, 15, 20 or more years, as the stuff I'm talking about in this video, they don't want to go there. They probably don't even want to watch my videos. It's kind of understandable, but I'm in the mind frame that I want to help anybody that I can, because I'm that confident in my stroke nowadays. I'm confident in the grip I obtained and got comfortable with. And I'm pretty comfortable with my skill set that I have and the muscle memory I created. I'm constantly trying to get better, and I'm trying different things as well, but Anybody that watches this video and practices the things that I'm saying in this video, I 100% guarantee if you're not doing some of these things and you start doing these things, you will find that you will become a much more consistent dart player. Remember, stare at your objective. Do not look at your dart. So if this was my dominant eye, and I'm at the board right now in my stance, and I'm staring down what I'm trying to hit, I'm going to bring the dart up beside my dominant eye without taking my vision off of the bullseye. I'm going to see in my peripheral my dart. It's just human nature. Everybody has peripheral vision. If I'm staring at the bullseye, I could see this dart beside my eye, even though I'm staring at the bullseye. Like I said in a previous video, this is my dominant eye, I used to come down my nose. That was, my set point, and then my back draw. But the problem was with this being my dominant eye, when I bring my hand down, my hand would break my focus on my objective. So with trial and error, I modified that. And now I just use my non-dominant eye. Even though I'm staring down the bullseye with my dominant eye, I could still tell that my flight is right below my non-dominant eye. But if I bring my hand back to 90, my dart's pointing directly at the board while my forearm is 90 degrees from the ground. That's really huge in darts. I couldn't tell you where my release point of the dart is. I couldn't tell you where anybody's release point of the dart is unless I've, videoed some slow motion videos. I seen one prominent player here in America. A lot of people throw his dart. So it's a front loaded dart. He just posted a slow motion video of him throwing a dart. There was some slow motion videos of Phil Taylor throwing a dart. You actually release the dart way sooner than you believe. But no matter who it is, like I said, the best players in the world, when their forearm's 90, the dart's level with the ground, and their forearm's perpendicular to the ground. I can't set my dart way up here for the simple reason it adds like tension in my shoulder. So on my back draw, when I try to follow through, I have trouble getting a full follow through when my arm is high like that. Because when on your back draw, you don't want your elbow to drop. Some people, they could set their dart way up there. I know some very good dart players that set their dart, up by their eyebrow. And then they bring it down to their eye and fire. I'm a below the eye, level with the eye when my dart's not, 90. With my forearm 90 and the dart parallel to the ground. This little bit of dip in my elbow actually softens my shoulder up, so on my back draw it's easier to follow all the way through without much tension. Young man that's a very good friend of mine, I just got to know him over the last few months, and he just went to Pittsburgh Bull Shooter, and he did pretty dang well in all the amateur events, and even in a few of the pro events that he played in. He has a thing where he goes up above his eye like this. And he got the full follow through when he's way up there with his elbow. Some people, they could do that follow through with their elbow height that high. And, he knows, I guess, he knows that he could see the flight out of his peripheral while he's focusing on what he wants, and he just can follow all the way through from that position. Me, like I said, I got to have a little dip when my dart's, parallel to the ground. My forearm's 90. I don't set my dart here. I set it right below my eye. Because if I come back a little bit more, it's right there where my set point is. But if I go to a forearm 90, my dart's level with the ground, it's 90. But at no point at all do I stare at my dart. I could see it in the peripheral. I see it and know it's there with my off eye, but with my dominant eye, I'm dead locked in on what I'm trying to hit. You don't want to aim your dart. You don't want to go just below the bullseye. All right. No. I used to do that when I had more lean and I was a newer player, 1-2 years. That's just giving you different elbow heights for everything you're trying to aim at. And you'll never get a consistent stroke that way. So you just got to put the time in. You got to practice. Create that muscle memory. Like I said, my wrist action is pretty heavy. My back draw. This is my back draw. I'm comfortable right here. I'm not pressing it. I'm comfortable. So when I'm in a comfortable back draw, or my wrist is locked comfortably, I'm right there. I'm 90. I'm parallel. Like I said a little bit ago, if you don't got this much wrist back draw, or wrist action with your wrist lock, that's fine. Everybody's different. Some people only can come to here, Everybody's built different. But that doesn't mean you can't find something comfortably where your dart's level with your forearm in a 90 position to the ground. Like, say I only had this. I'm a front holder. I could level my dart. I could level my dart with my wrist, less wrist action. You got to find something comfortable along the barrel with your amount of wrist lock where you can level your dart while your forearm's in the 90 position. Say somebody has more than me. Say somebody's wrist action, locked wrist is this. Then that just means that they tighten their grip up. See? No matter the amount of wrist lock that you have and movement backwards in your wrist, you want to lock your wrist, because then you develop a grip out of your wrist lock for when your forearm's perpendicular to the ground. Whatever amount of wrist lock you have, you want the dart level with the ground when your forearm's in the 90 position. Once you determine that wrist lock and your grip you're comfortable with while you're in those positions, you could do any different thing that you choose to, because you got your grip established, you got your wrist lock established. Like I said, you could, put your arm straight out. People like to do that because when they come up, it's right there by their eye. You could forego you could forego the setting with your anywhere up here. You could do one solid motion to your backdraw point. You could do it slow or fast. I'm only reiterating the forearm perpendicular to the ground, with your grip and your locked wrist, that you want the dart parallel to the ground when it's in that position, to help as a guideline to determine the proper grip with your wrist in the locked position. At no point am I telling you you have to set your dart there. There are thousands and thousands of players that do use that as their set point. I see them all the time at big dart events. I see them online watching videos overseas on the big stage. They'll come up and they'll, whatever wrist lock they have, they'll set their dart, maybe pump it once, and then they'll bring it back to their backdraw point and fire. But then, you see people that one solid motion, but I guarantee when they're in their set point getting ready to fire, if they went back and their forearm was 90, the dart would be level with the board. There's no doubt in my mind. So, this is quite a long video tonight. Hopefully this helped a lot of people. I appreciate everybody for watching. In my upcoming videos, I'm going to start getting into like your lean, how much to lean, what to look out for, not to over lean, foot placement, where to line up on the board. I got a bunch more videos. I just want to keep helping people. In the comments for this post, if you want a little info or a little help on anything, or got any ideas for me, I'd be glad to help if I can. Until my next video, everyone shoot straight. Thanks for watching.